and an ending.
And you need to
And we're started. And we're starting. We're on here.
Okay, so we've just, for all of our listeners tuning in, welcome to the Zolo and KT show with Liam Zolo and Katie Turner. We've just been arguing about whether we actually need to do an intro or not. I'm a big believer in, from my university days of essay writing and high school, there needs to be a beginning and a middle and an end, but Liam's had different thoughts and we don't need to do an intro.
No, man, the most popular podcasts in the world, they just start talking.
And they know who they are.
Huh?
We're still not that popular yet.
Yeah, but if someone's on our page...
Yeah, it's true. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. See, this is what I love. I love intros like that. That's my favourite. That's my favourite intro you've done.
So let me introduce our second guest this evening. I'm very honoured to have Ro Barclay in here from Deliciously Lean. Ro was actually a student of mine at FIA when I was in my fitness lecturing days. Let's take it away to give it a little bit of brief history about where you've come, what you're doing now maybe to start with, and then where your background and why you're doing what you are, and what is Deliciously Lean.
Deliciously Lean actually started out as just a food company. I was going to make meals, but then I realised that I couldn't make enough meals to make for many people. So I then, that's how the name came about. So it's sort of appropriate still for a PT, which is what I am. Maybe not as appropriate as it might be. But I was born and grew up in New Zealand. I left there a very long time ago, and I've lived in Australia for about 16 years now. I was a corporate lawyer. And then when I had my daughter, I actually stopped working and didn't work for a little while. And then I went and did landscape design. So I've had a very checkered history. But I've always been really serious about exercise. I've always loved my exercise. I've always been really, really active. So about 5 years ago was when I kind of came to a sort of a big change of direction in the way I exercised. And this is kind of how I came to be what I'm doing now. So I was like a lot of women in their late 40s, early 50s, and I'd always been really active. But I found that as I was getting to that time of life, that things were getting way harder to do. I was running a lot. I was doing half marathons. I was doing spin classes. You name it, I was probably having a go at it. But what I found was that I wasn't getting all the changes that I was looking for. I was still fit, but I was gradually putting on weight. And all the tricks and strategies I'd used before about dieting and exercising were just not working. And there was one moment, I still remember it really clearly. I was out with a bunch of friends running, and I sort of grabbed the fat around my middle and said, I'm just never going to get rid of this. This is now me. I'm just going to have to buy those loose clothes and those ruched bathing costumes to hide the fat. And that's it. This is the new me, is this new fatter person that I really don't like, and I really don't want to look in the mirror, and I'm not really happy with it, but what can I do? Because I've tried everything. And then I was introduced to a way of exercising and a way of eating, and I suddenly realized that actually that I could do something about it, that there was a really different way of exercising and training that you could kind of, even at my age, and I think then I was about 55, I could take back.
Then, I thought you were 21.
Yeah, well, exactly. Evidence. You just go backwards, you get younger and younger. I'm the new Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button, that's
right. Female form. So I realised that you'd actually that age really didn't matter. That yes, it was perhaps a bit harder, and you had to wait a little bit longer, had to be a little bit more patient, but actually you could transform the way that you looked and the way you felt just as easily, when you're older, and that age, my saying is age is just a number, and I really do believe that, because I don't think there's anything about being older that can stop you kind of going where you want to go with your health and fitness. Yes, you may have more injuries, and it may just take more time. And I say to all my clients, patience. It's all about consistency and patience, but you can get there in the end. And the other thing I found about my own journey was it didn't just, and it sounds really sort of cliched and trite, but it's just so true. It wasn't just the outside that looked different. I actually completely changed on the inside as well. And that was how I actually came to start my own business. I would never have had that self-confidence before I transformed myself to actually just leave my job and start my own business, and something I had never done before as a business. So it was a really big, bold step. And I think there's something, particularly because I do a lot of weightlifting, and that's where I think women should be exercising. I think there's something about when you lift a really heavy weight, or quite a heavy weight, if you can do that, there's like, I can
So
do anything.
empowering.
It's so empowering.
Yeah.
I do physique competitions. The last 2 years I've done physique competitions where you have to stand on stage in almost nothing in front of a whole bunch of strangers in a very small sparkly bikini and high heel sparkly shoes. And there's something that that empowering about the weightlifting and the way it makes you feel about yourself, that actually doing that isn't as nearly as big a deal as you thought. And before I actually decided to become a personal trainer full-time, I applied for a part-time job in a landscape and design business, one that I obviously wasn't working in. And they, I went in for the second interview. They were taking it really seriously, and they sat me down and they said, "No, this is a bit different, this interview, and we're going to ask you some questions." And I was kind of getting really nervous, like, what are they going to ask me? I'm really, really worried. And then I suddenly thought, and I said to them, that's fine. I don't really mind what you ask me. I've just stood on stage in a very small bikini and sparkly shoes. I can do anything. And it's kind of how it makes you feel. That's how weight feeling makes you feel. Like you can do anything. And I've seen my clients come in looking anxious and a bit worried, and 6 months, 12 months later, they're walking out the door and they've got a really big smile on their face, and they just look that much more confident. So they may not have changed enormously in shape, but I think on the inside they're feeling really different about themselves because they've set a challenge that is really outside their comfort zone, and they've met the task, and they've kind of come good, which is a really great feeling.
Feel it. So can I ask, because this is a lot of my clients' problems, or women that I've met, how did you believe that cardio wasn't going to change you? Because that deeply ingrained thought for women especially is they're cardio bunnies, and they'll run and they'll run and they'll run and they'll spin and spin and spin, but they don't believe about weights actually being able to change their body shape. So what made you try that, or even believe that could get you rid of that fat around the stomach?
I think for me, it was my own personal experience. This is why I believe so strongly in what I teach now, because I actually experienced those same thoughts, those same fears. So I had been the great cardio bunny, of all time, just about with the endurance running, and I was thinking of doing marathons and things, cardio. But what I realized was that the more cardio I was doing, the less effect it was having on the body shape, on my composition. It wasn't doing anything at all. And it was almost by accident when a friend of mine started training at a different gym where they lifted weights, that I just kind of started lifting weights. And then I was introduced to this method I now use myself that is linked with nutrition. And it was sort of doing it, and then I was going, oh my God, I'm actually changing as I'm sort of watching myself. And I think it was that actual practical process was I trusted enough. I knew cardio wasn't working. So I knew that wasn't the answer. So I thought, well, I'm happy to try anything else just to see. I mean, I love exercise, so it wasn't a sort of big hardship for me to go and to sort of try weightlifting, even though I'd never done it before. And it is a bit sort of, at first, is a bit concerning because you think, how could I lift these? So I think it was just the experience of knowing that cardio wasn't doing it, and it was actually getting worse. And the more I did, and the more injured I became, and the less or the more fat I got, that it was, I'd try anything else to see.
Do you think that everyone's body type is different? Like they respond better to weights, or do you reckon it's a blanket thing that we all respond to weights? And second part of that question, what do you define weights? Like is push-ups considered weights, or is it lifting something heavy, or swimming weights, for example? Like
the $1 million question.
Yeah. So what like because you can swimming through water, you can say that's resistance. Like I've been doing a lot of swimming at the moment, but it's cardio. But it's, man, I'm like feeling my posture's better and those sorts of things. Or is it because I'm not used to it? Like it's a tough one. So I guess how do you define weights?
Really interesting point. So the first one, I think body types, some people, obviously, I would say, there are different body types. I think there's 3, and I can't remember.
Meso, ecto, endo.
There you go.
I just don't remember which one's which.
But so some people will find it easier to build muscle than others, and there's not much you can do about that. But you can, even if you're not building muscle type, you can still build muscle, but I think it's much harder. So, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to build strength and you're not going to lift heavier, and you are going to build muscle. But I think it probably means applying yourself more and working harder and eating. A lot of it probably around the nutrition, so you support the type of exercise you're doing.
Yep.
So for someone who struggles to put on weight, they probably need to eat more carbohydrate, for example, possibly. Not saying that as a fact, but that's probably one way that if you struggle to put on weight and put on muscle, that might be the difference. That the difference would be not so much the exercise, but how you eat to support that exercise. And then as into weightlifting, so resistance exercise, there is a whole lot of resistance exercise. Swimming, I don't think, is actually regarded as a resistance exercise. It's more
even cardio.
And cardio is not. Body weight, so if you're lifting your body, then you're doing resistance exercise. But I think the key that I've learned, and in the way that I've been taught to coach resistance training, is it's all about progressively increasing the weights you're lifting. And that is really key to building muscle, so that if you're getting really good technique in a particular lift, then you need to progressively increase the weight you're lifting. So say you're doing a deadlift or anything, bench press, squats. To build the muscle, you need to challenge the body harder each time you do that. So say you train legs, or say you do deadlifts once a week. So each time you do that, you're going to lift a bit heavier if the technique's right. So only if you're doing it safely. But that is what I would consider the type of resistance exercise that is going to build muscle. So there's lots of things that are called resistance exercise or weight. You can go into a gym and lift 2 kilo weights or 10 kilo weights every week. It's probably not going to get you to where you want to go as efficiently, as quickly as a method that employs something called progressive overload. That's where you progressively increase the weights over time. So it depends. A lot of this depends on what you want your outcome to be.
Yeah.
See, for me, it's like I spent a lot of time doing a lot of weights from when I was 16 to 28. Deadlifts, back squats. Now, I feel like maybe because I've done them for so long, I'm looking for other alternate ways to keep that resistance. Or do you just keep doing it just to lift heavy, to keep that muscle mass on as I start to get older? That's what I find now. I
think there's a few things there, and a blanket approach is, what we were talking about this before, is a lot of way the online world has gone, is everybody should just, eat less, exercise more. And there's so many facts to it. It does depend on body shape. It does depend on how we progressively overload the body. It does depend on how quickly we adapt to certain types of exercise. And I think it's an individual thing. I think that's what personal training comes down to. It is personal. It is based upon your lifestyle. It is based upon, if you're working 16 hours a day, and I say to you, you have to train 6 days a week, and you have to eat this, and then you're going home to feed a family, and what I would program for them, and based on their goals, their body type, their lifestyle, their sleeping patterns, would be very different.
There's also, when I was working at, I was personal training manager at Fitness First recently, and 12 years of PT before that, in one lecture with PT Academy. Have you ever heard of PT Academy? Dom, yeah. So
shout out to him. He's a good guy.
Man, he's a good guy. Trying to get him on the show as well. Him and his wife.
He's based in Melbourne.
Yeah. Oh, is he based in Melbourne?
Yeah.
I thought him and his wife Mel. I think she's an American lady.
Yeah.
Anyway, they did this 30 question sheet for us for goal setting. And it really gave me the opportunity to realise something, and it might bring into context what we've been talking about, is that they split people up into 3 different types. Like there's always 3 different body types. They're talking about training. So they have, through a series of questions they ask is, they might ask questions like, do you have a program that, do you find that you'd prefer a program that you could stick to, or one that offers plenty of variety? And through these questions, they find out that whether you're a progressive style trainer, a hybrid style trainer, or a structured style trainer. So a structured person, and this is where you start to get clients, is a structured style person where you're going to find them in the gym. You're going to find them in the machines, weights, the dumbbell presses, the bench presses, all that stuff. Progressive. I don't know what that would be sort of. I guess it'd be structured. They didn't really talk about that. Knowing what they're going to have, and they're only safe in that domain. Where the progressive people, they're like wearing the latest Nike watch. Anything the latest and greatest. They want to be on the rings. They want to be on that sort of stuff. And a hybrid is the hardest person to train, and that's just on the day they want to do something progressive, rings, and the next day they want to do Viper, and the next day they want to do weightlifting. So they're like a bipolar of the fitness world. But I find that interesting because if you take someone out of the natural habitat, maybe this is like what we've been talking about anyway. Take someone out of natural habitat. That's where they find that the research is showing that they find that people are that's why they stop personal training, because they don't want to be in that section of the gym. They want maybe variety, or we give them too much variety where they only want the structure, of a workout. So I found that interesting where it's more of a mindset, and where training's based on people's personality types rather than the program that we're giving them as much.
Well, it has to be aligned to either an enjoyment factor or a goal.
Yeah.
That's the only way that anybody's going to stick to any kind of exercise program consistently, is they either have to like it or they've got a bigger goal that overcomes that dislike of that exercise consistency. So I think that'll come down to choosing the exercise based upon that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it interesting where the personal training industry is going, and especially like what you're saying, you started, you've always been into exercise, but you started later in terms of lifting weights.
Yes.
So
I never did gym stuff at all.
No, I never did.
Until I was in my mid-50s. Never really been into a gym.
Yeah, so I find that fascinating as well. And then having such results so fast as well. Like I hired a trainer and he was 63 and he was a university professor, Gus, his name is. Yeah. He was a economics professor and he lost a bunch of weight when he was early 50s. And now he's lifting deadlifts and back squats heavier than I was doing at 18. I just find that miraculous how you can live a whole sedentary life and then the last few years, like his last few years of,
not in his
last few years. Yeah, I just got to clarify that.
Sorry, Gus.
He'll outlive me, I'm telling you. But he's dramatically changed his body type around. I find that fascinating. Do you reckon that's more of a mindset shift, or do you reckon that's more of you just knew you had it in you all along?
I think there's something about when you're older, life is more clarified for you because you can start to see the limitations. It's not just going on forever. And I think that does clarify stuff. You think, I've got to work bloody hard now, excuse language, because I might not, but then there's not, relatively speaking, as much time left. So it's about, I think it's really important I think that mindset comes with that need to take action now sort of sense that, and I think once you start doing some form of exercise, and maybe, particularly I find with weightlifting, and you start to see results, your mindset starts changing. I think there's that sort of rolling ball effect that the results you get, the harder you're prepared to work because you love what you're seeing. So you work even harder.
Yeah.
So I think that's really a big part of it. It's very hard and frustrating, I think, when people don't see results because they're doing all this hard work and they may be sacrificing good fun, good times, and out of it is coming nothing. But if you're starting to lose weight and see, some really good body shape come out of it, then it's like, wow, yeah, I'm going to give up drinking, or I'm going to forego the beers with the guys because I really like what I see. So I think it is it's definitely a lot of mindset involved.
Tony Robbins says it's like it takes 1 second to make a decision, but takes 5 years to get to making that decision.
Yeah.
You know, so and it's interesting to see that we procrastinate so much.
Yes.
And it just takes an instant just to go, okay, I'm doing this now. So
yeah, there's
Do you think that's in everyone?
Well, I not necessarily. I think it comes to people in the program I use where we look at some sort of psychological issues around changing people's behaviour. There's a thing called a snap point, and you have to have that snap point, which is there has to be a point at which you go, that's it. I don't want to be the way I am anymore. And it could be, you know, I want to be able to play with my kids. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I want to be able to do this activity that I can't do. But that's often what then drives people to make that decision to change. And they will overcome maybe their dislike of an exercise or getting up early in the morning or routines they're not used to because they've reached that point where they just don't want to be the way they are anymore. And I think that's probably the most important point for most people to come to. If they're at a crossroads with their sort of health or the way they feel about themselves or the way they look, I mean, not so much for someone who's just exercising generally for enjoyment and they're kind of happy with what they're doing. But I think if you're like really overweight or really unhealthy, then I think you need that sort of that's it moment. When you change your mind.
Before you'll even seek to change your behaviour.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a big part of it is that until you have that aha minute, we can increase the services all we want, but until they actually consciously go, I've had enough, I need to change my lifestyle, I need to change my behaviour, then nothing will change. And can I ask you with your business, because it's predominantly women over 40, if I'm right?
That's right.
What's their number one goal out of most of your clients over 40 still?
Yeah. I think actually the number one goal is probably better health or good health in the future. Wow. So they're starting to see the future as well. They're starting to see, you know, retirement, and they want to put in place now practices and a body, you know, that their body and their mind is in a really healthy place now so that they can go on being in that healthy place in the future. I think quite a lot of them have a secret desire to actually kind of wear a bikini on the beach.
Of course.
But I think the main driver is probably good health. And with that often a bit of weight loss. But for most of my clients that's part of the bigger picture.
Do you think that when as you start to get older, because you're saying that you made that decision, that you know that, oh God, like halfway through my life here, do you think that you're smarter with that? You know what you need to prioritize? Like I'm 31, I'm still thinking, shit, I don't have a lot of time. I don't know how long I'm doing, so I'm trying to do all I can while I can. But that's just spreading myself to all different directions. It's not really being smart with okay, I know that I've got like 50 years maximum left. I'm going to choose it on this path. Where me, I'm like, I don't have a lot of time left. I'm doing this, and this because I want to maximize everything.
I don't think they spend a lot of time worrying about the end of their life, but I think in choosing to do exercise or in choosing to do a particular type of exercise, that is, sorry, my earphones are falling off. That is part of the decision. I feel like that comes into the decision-making process, that they are thinking about, they want to feel better now, but they also want to feel better when they're older. And they want to be able to keep on doing it, because most of them are already fairly active. They want to keep on doing that stuff in their 60s, 70s or whatever. So if they're in their 50s now, they want to set themselves up so when they're in their 60s and their 70s and even beyond, they're still able to do those active things that they enjoy now. I think that's part of the decision making. I don't think it's all of it. They don't just sit there going, oh my God, I've only got 25 years left to live. I better make, decisions now that are sensible. But I think it's part of the mix that they think about. I mean, I don't think about it. I try really hard not to think about it. How many years
but I think that comes down to also, quality over quantity, right?
Yes.
I'm okay if I've got 30 years left, but I want to be able to move for the next 30 years rather than, being on every drug in the world, being, incapacitated. and across the board, not just exercise and movement patterns, but it also becomes prioritising who you spend your time with, what you do with your time, where you go. All of those decisions are prioritised as you get older. When you're a bit younger and you're like Liam, if you've got every friend and you don't have to prioritise, kids aren't there yet. So I think it's very general, but you do become more specific as you get older.
I think that's really true. The decision making becomes more not narrow, but you become almost pickier, as you say with the friends. You have fewer friends, but they're really good friends, that sort of thing. And you spend time with people you really want to spend time with, rather than maybe lots of people that you're not so keen to spend time with. So I think it starts to clarify the way you think about things.
Yeah, definitely.
Think smarter.
Yeah, definitely.
I had a big birthday recently. I won't say which one, but it was funny because I
21?
Thanks. That's why I But, I looked around and I saw who my friends were that were there, and they were either fitness or business related. Like, I'd met them through either fitness, whether they were a client.
Where was I invited?
You were in Bali.
Oh,
so,
you're lucky.
No, you're in the States.
I was in the States.
Yeah. So, there wasn't an invite sent out.
Yeah, okay.
But, it came down to these people. Like, I'm a big lover of fitness, as you guys know, and business, like in my and my family, obviously. But outside of those, where my interests lie, and everybody who was there, I'd met either through business or fitness or both of them. So I think it's really important, as we were saying, prioritising and who you surround yourself with are big points.
Well, and especially if you want to if you decide to change the way you live and perhaps be more healthy and more active. And you want to address some of those health and fitness issues, then surrounding yourself with people who are on the same kind of journey is really beneficial. Because when you hit roadblocks and when you're finding things tough, and if someone else is there going like, no, you can do it, come on, like a lift, you can lift that last 2 reps, you can add those couple of kilos, you can do this, that it really can change things.
So what would be a type of program that you do offer? Like, what would you do? Like, do you do a split, like a leg day, back day, chest day, or do you do it like, more compound movements, like a deadlift day, a squatting day?
I personally split into body areas. So because I do 4 days, I split mine into legs, shoulders, back, chest. But my clients do 2 days. Most of them just do 2 days, so we do all body on each day. So we'll do, at the moment, the split is front and back. So we'll do all the back. So we'll do deadlifts and lat pull downs. So we do upper and lower, but all the back. And on the other day, we do squats, and presses. Mm-hmm. So we address the front. So we try and get that balance between front and back. Okay. And it means that when I think also why I like that particular split is that it gives you 2 days where you're doing legs a week and you're not getting too big a gap between working a part of the body. So you may be doing deadlifts, but you're working front and back, but you're focusing on the back, say. So I quite like that. But for me, because I do more days and I'm still trying to work maybe towards another competition, I focus very much on body areas. And I have the luxury of doing a leg day and a shoulder day because I do more days actually training.
So you do more weight lifting, but then is there any cardio? Nothing? 1 day probably. What would you do on that cardio day?
I do really short, max 30 minutes intense interval or circuit training type on anything. Mostly just, I don't want to lift any weight with that. So it'll be, if I go to a gym, it'll be like bike, cross trainer, rower, box jumps, skipping, using the machines. If I do it just at home where my studio is, but I don't have a lot of equipment, I'll do like bike, use the TRX, things like, burpees, bench jumpers. You can make yourself pretty tired. Definitely. Just with body weight. Sprint around the block, doing frog jumps, sprints up and down. I actually did that the last 2 times because I thought this is actually harder than going to the gym. Because it's really good to mix up your cardio so your body never really gets used to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because it's the exercises you find hardest that are probably going to burn the most fat. Although, interestingly enough, I read something recently, in fact, just about this week, about weight loss for women incorporating cardio into it, so incorporating cardio and resistance training, for them more important than men. Men are probably going to lose, drop body fat and build lean muscle tissue more easily just with resistance training. For women, it's actually quite important to incorporate some cardio. Need to do the resistance, but also some cardio, because that their bodies respond differently to different kinds of exercise. I thought that was really interesting.
That is interesting.
So do you think it comes down to incorporating every facet of fitness? Like, I'm a big believer, and how I've trained my clients is very circuit-based, is very incorporating cardio and HIIT resistance training. And because, like I say to a lot of my people, it doesn't matter if you've got the best biceps in the world, if your heart's not working, go to the grave looking good. But how about we make you look good as well as make you live longer? So as a generalised fitness level, would you think that it's important to incorporate everything?
I'm not sure it matters maybe how you get there, but what I like the idea of is that I like to think that my training actually addresses people's health first. So I'm trying to make people healthy and have more energy as almost as a byproduct. They're going to look better. So if you, and in the program I use, there's a manual that I use that helps me. And in that they talk about a golden triangle. And the bottom two parts of the triangle are the way you feel and the way you function. So your health and your energy levels. Mm-hmm. If you build those really strong, if your focus is that, the pinnacle on the top, which is the way you look, that's going to come without even trying, and it's going to have a really strong foundation. So that, I think it doesn't matter how you get there, and everyone will, I mean, there's always going to be a different approach. I mean, you look at where I am in Bondi Junction, there must be, 100 different personal trainers, gyms, fitness outlets of some sort. They will all come with 100 different approaches, and there will be something to suit everybody, and a lot of them will get good results. And so it doesn't matter in a way how you get there, it's where you get to. So I think you're absolutely right. You want not just to look good, you actually want to be healthy and feel good and be able to move well. Yeah. And what I actually find quite interesting, just going around that, you want to have big biceps but have a healthy heart, is that I sometimes take my heart rate after I've done a lift, and I find, particularly something really heavy or single leg work, I can get my heart rate up higher doing that than my hardest cardio. Which I find really interesting. Yeah. So that 30 seconds, my heart is really hammering. I'm thinking that must be good for you. Yeah. Yeah. Either that or I drop dead. One or the other.
Try coffee before. So I suppose the next question is if we've got a saturated market of gyms, of personal trainers, yet we have the biggest globesity problem ever seen before, what's going wrong? Like, I think since when I first started as a PT 15 years ago, like, I was one of the few, and now every second person is a personal trainer or a group fitness instructor or a wellness coach or whatnot. Yet we have the biggest globesity issue that we've ever seen. What's the divide? Is it the education? Is it splitting the industry so people think that they have to be fit before they go to a gym? I mean, I haven't got the answer. Do you?
Saturation leads to procrastination. I think saturation of knowledge. There's too much knowledge out there for people to get access to, and that's leading people to procrastination. It's like we don't know which way to turn. Like, as you was mentioning before, there's 100 gyms, 100 different ways. But which one do I go down? And it forces people to overthink, and then overthink leads to more eating leads to less exercise leads to the obesity problem. That's one part of it.
Definitely. I think there's also a big thing about instant gratification these days, is that people they choose somewhere, they go to it. 6 weeks, don't get results, I'm going to try something else. Whereas in my experience, you only get results over consistency and persistence over a longer period of time. So I would sit down with my clients and say, okay, this journey to get where you want to go in your goals is going to, let's be realistic, this is going to take a year. So be up, they need to know up front that this is not a 6-week or a 12-week journey. We're not about just dieting and getting thin because all you're going to do is put it all back on again. So it's about that consistency. So if people are going, I should be able to get results really quickly, and they jump from this to that and around all these different things, they never really get their body never really gets a chance to get a handle on anything.
I agree. And I also think
that's part of it anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that if people are not making it important enough to exercise, it's like you're not going to stop. If you stop eating, you die. If you stop breathing for a minute, you die. You stop exercise, eventually you're going to die. Well, you're going to die anyway, but you know what I mean? Like, try stopping yourself breathing for a minute. It's the same thing. Exercise is a daily occurrence. It needs to be moving our body consistently. And it's the same with heart function. It's beating 60 times a minute for 80 to 100 years of your life. It doesn't stop. Taking a break for 10 seconds, it's going to kill you. So it's the same thing with exercise. I don't think people don't stress the importance of exercise and doing it, as you've mentioned, consistently, not for 6 weeks, not for 12 weeks, but every day of your single life until the moment you can exercise, which is from when you're walking to the moment you die. And people realise that, then they'll realise that, shit, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing something.
And the other thing, I think the other half of that is our nutrition, which is the other half of the equation. I mean, you can exercise all you want, but if you don't eat properly, then you're only doing half the work in a way. So I think the way people eat is part of it. And I think there's a lot of myths around what's healthy. And we do still tend to rely an awful lot on processed foods and high carbohydrate foods. Well, we don't. You were saying joking earlier about the coconut oil in the drinks. Fine if you're about to climb Mount Everest, but, maybe not.
Well, that's a fact. Putting fat into yourself is a longer burning energy source where carbohydrates is more explosive, And so it is maybe a bit of education around when to eat the right foods at the right time.
Do you think there's also, there's a really valid point, is what you say, is the decision-making process has become so hard now because people are just, bombarded with every second person telling them what to do, where to go, with not really scientific research behind it.
Just on that, I'm getting told what to do by people on the streets. Like, oh, I've been researching on Google and you should be doing this. Like with my hamstring, I've got a torn hamstring, grade 2 adductor, grade 2 hamstring tear. And I'm doing exercise like, well, you shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing this because it's their point of view. So I think everyone's becoming a trainer, which is good, but I don't know. I lost the point. I had a good valid point. I lost it.
That's right, because there's such, you type in top 10 weight loss tips into Google, and I mean, there's billions and billions of pages. And Ro, as you're saying, everybody's after the instant gratification because nobody's really prepared to work for it anymore. But is it also the fact that us personal trainers are so physique orientated rather than fitting into people's lifestyle orientated? That's my biggest thing. Even if there is education out there, if I am here in Sydney paying $1 million mortgage off and I'm travelling 13, 14 hours to work, for me, I'm busy at the moment. We've got the Pod Hub, I lecture, I've got a daughter, I'm building a fitness business back up next year, so I am busy.
You got a future husband as well. You got to mention him
first. Hi, honey.
Sorry. I've got your back, Tom. All the time, mate. I've got your back.
And a fiance I have to take care of as well. And, it is a matter of being time poor. It's real. My day starts this morning at 5:15 and you're not getting home until 8:30. So how do you fit that into that lifestyle? I'm motivated and I've got the proper education. So I did get up and go training this morning. But if you're living that life every day and you turn to a personal trainer and they're like, you have to train with me 5 times a week and you have to drink fucking protein shakes and everything else, it's not realistic and it's not educational. And maybe personal trainers have to be rebranded to some extent as well. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. But, I mean, just brings back to the point. It's just, for me, for example, I've been doing swimming. I just use as the term before we're talking about swimming. I've just been enjoying the whole process of swimming. Last 3 days I've been in Dubbo, Mudgee. There's no local swimming pools there. I didn't see any local swimming pools in Mudgee, Dubbo and that. And then I didn't see a gym around. So I didn't really train. I didn't feel as though I had the time to train. But because I come from an exercise background, I knew that after today, I'm irritable, frustrated, that my mood's a bit different. And I had to collect myself and have that self-awareness. And I think this is what I'm getting at, that shit, I'm like this because I haven't trained in the last few days. And I think that people's moods or people having that feeling around the body. It brings back to what you're saying before about lifestyle, like having that understanding of, I'm feeling this way because of this. Like 3 p.m. comes, I'm craving a sugar high. Why? Why are you craving it? It's because you haven't had enough protein throughout the day, which is you're craving carbohydrates, which you need more protein in your body at that particular time. Oh, maybe I won't go for the chocolate. Maybe I'll go for something, a couple of eggs or something like that instead. Same thing with exercise. I'm feeling frustrated and I'm maybe arguing with my partner, whatever it may be. It's like, why? Well, the last few days I haven't trained. I've been sitting on my ass. I haven't had that endorphin release, so get out and train. So do you think it's more of maybe a self-awareness thing?
Yeah, or I suppose it's, what do you say, being self-accountable almost. Having a little bit of self-education, but knowing where to go and what's going to fit into your lifestyle that's realistic, I think is the base level.
Yeah.
I think it's also about prioritizing health and fitness so that we do all have really busy lives. But it's about helping people change the way they see what's important in their lives. So maybe, rather than spending those I was in Melbourne the weekend and I got an Uber back to the airport. And the guy was really keen to have a chat about, particularly as a PT, about what his diet was, and he was put on all this weight and how was he going to change it, and then he proceeded to tell me how he was going to change it. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to listen to what you're doing. And part of it was he sat all day in the car, obviously, and when he got home he was too tired to go to the gym, and he'd sit and watch TV. So he had like 2 or 3 hours sitting in front of the TV, and it's around helping people make changing habits and decisions. So rather than spending those 2 hours in front of the TV, yeah, that is great. We get home, we slump, grab a glass of wine, whatever. It's about, no, okay, I need to get up, go to the gym. He had the time, but he didn't have the habit that enabled him to make those good decisions about how to use that time. And I know that's not something everyone is able to do, but I reckon most people could probably find a couple of hours a week. And the thing with weight training that I love so much is you don't have to do it very often. Like my clients train 2 or 3 times a week. That's all I need from them, 2.5 hours. And they get results because they combine it with good nutrition. So if you can help people and this is where I think PTs come in, is we help people see how they can make decisions and can prioritize their health to incorporate it in a really sensible, doable way and not demand 5 or 6 days a week in the gym from them. Then I think we could help people change the way they live so they can incorporate health and fitness more into a really busy life, because everyone's manically busy and a lot of people are commuting long distances, and it's like, how do we help them see that they can probably incorporate exercise time in there? It's better choices, and it's about changing those habits. Habits are hugely influential. Like, you can start out with all the best intentions in the world. My New Year's resolution is to exercise more. Gym memberships at the beginning of the year are huge. Everyone goes and joins a gym, and after a couple of months they stop going.
Couple of weeks,
couple of days,
couple of hours.
After the Christmas dinner's settled there. So it's habits are really strong, and it's helping people maybe change those habits to healthier ones and healthier ways of eating.
I think that's a huge point, and as a good personal trainer, that should be one of the first things you do. And Ro knows is one of my favourite sayings when I was lecturing was, it takes 30 days to create habit and 3 months to create lifestyle changes. So if you do say the same thing for 30 days, you'll create a habit, and that's generally, some people say 26, 28, whatever. And then if you do the same thing for 3 months, you've created a change that you may not follow it for the 52 weeks of the year, but you've created a change of that habit that you can always come back to, that it is a better choice.
The game is when if you build a habit and do something exercise related every day, set a daily agreement, is when people stop, they beat themselves up and then they stop. Don't you reckon? Yeah. So it's maybe something in there where if you break that habit that day, it's like bounce back.
Yeah, there's an element and I think the accountability is really important in here as well. That's why PTs, that's one of our biggest roles, is we help keep people accountable. If you've paid for that class, or you know someone's waiting for you at 5 o'clock in the morning and it's winter and it's dark and it's cold and they're waiting for you, you're going to get up and go. Whereas if it's just, I'm going to go for a run, it's, no, I'm going to stay in bed because it's too awful. So I think the accountability part of it is really important. And if it's not with someone else, it could, or a PT, it could be with a friend. You know, I'm going to meet my friend to do this. I can't let them down. And if it's not a friend, it could be, I'm going to be accountable because, and I've heard this as a real example, if I don't get to my goal, I'm going to pay money to a charity I really don't like. So you are...
There's a financial...
It gives you a financial kind of motivation to make a change. And I think, because I think it is really hard to change habits just on your own. It's
definitely. I did that when I travelled around Central America with a friend of mine. I've shared this story a couple of times. And at the airport in Costa Rica on the way back, I'm like, I don't want to drink anymore. I'm so sick of drinking. We've done it every single day for the last 6 weeks. Become like an alcoholic. And he's like, oh, stop whinging and moaning. We'll do something about it. I go, I need something drastic though, like just keep me away from this. I go, I need to, like what you're saying, accountability. I need you to write a contract. And anything that you do, that you say in the contract, I'll sign it, you sign it, and my mate at the airport, let's do it. And then he's like, I don't even want to tell you what some of the things. I had to snort wasabi. That was one of the things. I had to dip things.
Boys, man, I'm so glad I'm a girl.
Some parts of me in hot sauce.
Some parts of it.
Yeah. And then I had
to give him... your hair's red?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then I had to give him $300 as well, $400 as well. Perfect. So it was money. But then not only that, I decided to enlist every single person I know, and I took a photo and put it on Instagram and Facebook. And I go, hold me accountable. And what I found is throughout that 2-month process, I didn't drink a drop of alcohol, but what I found is even if it was a beer next to me, I'd get a random at the bar that I haven't seen in God knows how long going, that beer's near you, you have to dip your whatever it is, you have to snort wasabi, where's the wasabi? I'm like, I didn't even drink a beer. So I enlisted every single person I knew to try and do that.
That's such a great idea.
That's a drastic measure. I'm not saying you have to do that for everyone, but maybe people do need that accountability.
We live in a world now that claims no accountability. We live in a tech world. If I don't want to meet you, I just ghost you. If I'm going to be late, I just call you. Whereas
that's why they never got back to me.
15 years ago, you know, before the phones, where technology was so available, if you said you were going to meet me outside of somewhere, you had to turn up because there was no way of getting out of that. You know, if I didn't want to see you again as a date, I would have to actually call you or text you. Now people just ghost. Like there's no form of accountability. People can hide behind screens, even on social media. They can bully. There's no accountability option. So I think you're right, Ro. I think that, you know, bringing it back to they have to be held accountable to be able to change habits for their lifestyle, becoming aware. So it is part of our role.
Yeah. Accountability, direction, support. That's our 3 things we're here for, I think, as PTs.
Yeah.
But then maybe people need to start taking ownership and doing that themselves as well.
They do. Yeah.
Accountability. Kick up the arse. Even I need to kick up the arse.
I listened to a podcast with Muscle Nerds, who I love, but they're a great podcast. It's Luke Lehman, exercise scientist, and he's travelled the world and whatnot. And he said the 2 things that everybody should know is their blood pressure and their heart rate. If you want to take accountability for your own health, there are 2 things that you can start with today and understand how they affect your health and how exercise and nutrition affects that.
Don't say that after we've had 2 coffees just then.
But I know that's what my heart is going to do to my heart rate and my blood pressure, right? And that's again accountability and how many can you have?
Yeah.
But I think that's the important part. But anyway, I have to
wrap up. Let's wrap it up.
So just before we go, Ro, where can people find you on website, Facebook?
Website, all under Deliciously Lean. So it's just deliciouslylean.com, my website. I'm on Facebook, Deliciously Lean, or Ro Barclay. I'm not sure which one it comes up. Also on Instagram, all Deliciously Lean. Too easy to find.
Anybody listening to our podcast, you can go to our Facebook page, the Zola and KT Show, and have a look at Ro's physique at 50. We'll just say that.
Remarkable.
Well, I'm actually quite happy to say I'm now 60.
60.
I'm 60 because I feel like I actually feel really good for 60. So in my 50s, I hated saying I was 50,
Mm.
but somehow now I'm 60. It's like, I'm 60, and I think I look really
Amazing.
You look
okay.
amazing.
I think I look okay.
Yeah.
So I sort of feel like I've got to the age now. It's like, God, you look amazing for your age, and I go, yes, that's how old I am.
Mm.
So
Walks
Awesome.
the talk.
yes.
Well, it's been a
Exactly.
pleasure. Thank you so much
Well,
for your time.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having me.
Thank you.
See
See you later, guys and girls.